You're it. I'm Amanda Malcolm, and you're listening to You're It Girl, a podcast focused on you and what propels you. Because that past, it does not define you. Your time is now, and you're it, girl. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to You're It Girl. Today, we have a guest that you have seen before. Her name is Kam Steyl. She's calling in from South Africa. Hello, Kam.
Hey, Amanda. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. Thank you so much for having me on again.
Thank you for coming on again. Kam and I share a lot. There's a lot of similarities. If you haven't listened to the other episode that Kam was on, go back and listen to that episode because it gives a lot of background into her and her life and some of her experience when she was living with me in the United States when she was 18 and 19 years old as an au pair, which is like a cultural exchange type of program. Isn't it so crazy though, when you are 18, 19, you think that you do think that you know everything and that the person that you're talking to that's older has never been in the situation. It's just it's so wild. Like I look back on those years too and I think, gosh, everybody always says this, but it's like, oh, if I only knew then what I know now. But it's so true.
It's so relevant. Like, it really is. Like, there's lots of times where I will sit and I will think about, I'll sit and I'll think about how you said to me, like, Kam, no, do not go on a second date with this guy. Like, absolutely not. He made you wait outside for 30 minutes. And I'll be like, but Amanda, it's true love. It's true love, Amanda. You just don't understand. He wants what's best for me, but he was busy.
You're definitely not.
Yeah, absolutely not. Now looking back, I'm like, okay, 18-year-old Kam, seriously, what the hell were you doing?
Oh, gosh. Sometimes I don't even want to think about some of the things that I was doing.
I know.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So what brought you to the U.S.? So you were 18, you had just graduated.
Yeah, I just finished high school. We call it matric. So I just matriculated, passed, was super happy, never had to go to a high school again. Oh, thank goodness, it was hell on earth. And I was going to go to university, and I was dating this guy for probably it was almost 4 years at that point. We were dating throughout high school, and I really didn't know anything about life, other than my own personal experiences with my family and my trauma. And I was going to go to university and study music or psychology. And then one day I woke up and that guy texted me and he was like, hey, a mutual friend of ours has posted on social media that this family is looking for an au pair. So I was like, oh, I love kids. Like, I have literally made my money from baby. So like, this is totally up my alley. Get paid to look after kids throughout the day. Absolutely. So I reached out to you. I actually was looking at our Facebook conversation this morning and I was just like kind of remembering everything that we spoke about. And you said to me, you were like, we were speaking on the phone or whatever, and you said to me, wait, you know that this job it's in America, right? You'd have to move to America. And I was like, yeah, no.
You didn't know that?
I had no idea. I had no idea that you guys were like.
That is so funny because that was so you at 18. Oh, that's what I have to do? Okay, sure. I can get on board with that.
I can do it. Cool. Let's go.
But it was a complicated process.
Oh, absolutely. And having when keep in mind I'm like 18 years old. For everyone listening, 18-year-old me, zero experience, lives with my family my whole life. I go to my mother and I say to my mother, I found the coolest job. She was like, oh, I'm so proud of you. I'm like, yeah, I need you to help me though and take me to the embassy. She was like, what embassy? I'm like, the US embassy. I'm moving overseas. And she was like, the hell you are. Absolutely.
I have to talk to your mom about that.
Yeah.
I can't believe she and I never chatted about that. That is so funny. Okay, keep going.
My mom was like, absolutely not. And I was like, well, it's me. I'm super defiant. I'm going to do it anyways. So
You
just
are
help me,
defiant. You
brother.
are very defiant.
I really was the most defiant person. You would say to me, no, you have to color that thing in blue, and I'll color it in red if I have to. Um,
Yes.
so we did the whole process. I spoke to you a few times on the phone. You know, you kind of introduced me a little bit more in slow intervals to what Kennedy was doing and, you know, her activities. I was looking at, you were sending me like messages and stuff about like her schedule, and she was still doing ballet.
And she was two and a half,
Yeah,
at the time.
she was
Yeah.
2.5. And she was so cute. Oh my goodness. With the little bangs, and she's so cute. So yeah, we just kind of started speaking, and I really think there was just such a good synergy between you and I. I really feel like
We'll talk about why this is,
yeah.
y'all. We'll talk about why this is, y'all, a little bit later. Keep going.
And I really do think though that like I think that's why we could be so like we could butt heads sometimes, but so efficiently.
Yes, that's a good way of saying it. Yeah.
Yeah,
We did
we
butt
butted
heads
heads
efficiently. Yes.
efficiently. Because I think that like I saw a lot of what I wanted in life. I saw in you, and I think you saw a lot of yourself when you were younger in me. And so when I came to America, you know, we did the training in New York for the Au Pair Academy. And I got to say, though, like, I don't feel like we were trained on the right things
Yeah.
in coming to America. You know, we learned the obvious stuff that you need to be as an au pair, like the CPR, the how to take care of a child, and all the emergency stuff. But nobody told me about.
Just so everybody knows what an au pair is, because actually sometimes I talk about this and people are like, "What is that?" So au pair is basically like it's basically like a foreign exchange type of program. But the person that's coming to is basically coming to live with you, and they provide childcare and basically exchange for basically room and board and living with you. But it is truly like an extension of your family. So like if you go on vacation, you take them with you. So you're really integrated. You actually, I would refer to Kam as my host daughter, and I would be her host
my
mom.
host mom. Yeah, no, it very much was. But you see, this is again why I think there's a lot, if I could look back, that I feel would need to be changed about the whole system of how au pairs, because how do you train au pairs in America? Because I really feel like, yeah, we learned the emergency side, how to care, how to, you know, if we were working with newborns, how to warm up a bottle correctly or whatnot. But nobody told me about the intense cultural difference that I was going to run into when I was moving from South Africa to America. I thought, okay, cool, an English-speaking an English-speaking country. I'm from an English-speaking country.
Should be easy.
It'll be the same. But it wasn't. It was completely different. The way of living, the way of speaking, the lingo and the language, the way you guys used it. So I really almost wish that the company had kind of said to us, like, don't be alarmed. Don't be alarmed when you walk in and you kind of just don't understand. Like, don't be kind of freaked out when you can't figure out what they call something in America versus what you call it at home.
Yeah. And that's even speaking English. There's many. We had an au pair from Brazil and one from Colombia. So imagine speaking a different language too. You speak English.
And like that is like, it was so bizarre to me because
it's mind blowing.
I was like, how are these things that I am confused about right now? How are these things difficulties right now? We speak the same language. And I also think a big thing was I wish that they explained to you kind of like the growing pains that you're going to have when you move to a place where you know absolutely no one. And I feel like I was very blessed and I was very lucky. A few of my friends as well that I made in the exchange program, you know, they were also very lucky too. But there were a lot of girls and guys that ended up in families where it was just nothing like they said it was going to be. And the companies are supposed to do home checks, right? But the homes that they saw versus the homes that they lived in, we're completely different. My friend, when her host family was in New York, and she literally got to the house and it was just like a stage 3 hoarding situation. And she just called the au pair company and she was like, I can't live here. Like I cannot do it. And she had to wait there for a week. Like there is
And how
no,
uncomfortable. How
yeah,
uncomfortable. Like here you are, you just arrived in a new country. You're in a foreign home and
yeah.
you're so uncomfortable. You don't know the people and now you have to stay there for a week.
And it's just like you really don't, like, we obviously we sign up for this and we willingly go, and we come to experience what it is like to live in another country, because it's not an easy thing to do. It's not, especially to come to America, it's not an easy thing just to pack up all your stuff and say, cool, American borders, please let me through, I want to live here. So their exchange program is a great way to kind of get your foot in the door and be like, hi, I enjoy living in this country. And I think the problem is that for a lot of girls, if they aren't in a lucky situation like what I was, where I felt like the family that I worked with was my family, my host family, I feel like a lot of them end up feeling really trapped. And a lot of them are actually really like abused, in the sense of they work way over the hours that they're supposed to. They're really like almost manipulated to kind of clean their homes.
And you're 18, 19. I mean, the oldest you can be is like 26 in the program, but most of the girls are probably, most of the girls I would say are under 21, because
Absolutely.
host families don't really want to deal with someone that's of age to be able to drink in this country. So
Yeah,
most are young.
absolutely.
And so you're living with adults and you're working for them and you're caring for their children. So even if something, you shouldn't be working a certain amount of hours, or you shouldn't do something at 18, 19, what are you going to say? You're kind of
100%.
afraid to say something or stand up for yourself in that environment, especially considering this person is literally buying your food.
100%. And it's just like, you don't, I remember, it's so funny that you say that, because there is a distinct time where I remember I was still very much getting to know you guys, and I didn't realize like how unconditionally loving you guys were, because I just moved in. And there was a picture frame on the table that the TV was sitting on. I was so lucky. I was so happy with my room when I got into it. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so nice. But there was a picture frame, and you put a bunch of empty picture frames so I could put photos in them. And I was unpacking my bag, and I knocked the picture frame off the table. And I messaged you. I was too scared to tell you in person, so I messaged you on Facebook.
I remember that.
Like, I was like, the last thing I said, I was reading it on Facebook today, and the last thing I said was, "Please don't send me home."
For breaking the picture frame.
Knocking over picture frame, like, Kam, like, no, people knock over picture frames, like, it's very normal. I was like, okay, whew, like, that's a stress that's over. But it just shows you, like, you're in a place that's not your safe haven, right? Like, it's not you, and you don't know who you're moving in with. It's impossible to fully know somebody. So I mean, I remember when I got off the plane, my friend Gabby and I, we both came to Arizona. She's married now. She still lives in Arizona, and she's had her first baby.
Aww.
And so yeah, no, it's pretty cool. And I remember we both got on the plane from New York, and I had this big bag of makeup, and we sat there and we're like, my gosh, we've got to look super put together. We're going to meet our families now. Like, we're so excited. So we did our makeup on the plane, and we got off, and I met you guys for the first time, and Kennedy was so shy, but I said to her, like, do you want a present? And she was like, yep, I do. And she's like, this is my new best friend. And then you guys took me for dinner, but like, I was so tired, and I think you spotted that. So I went for like quick and easy food, and you're like, what do you want to eat? And I was like, I don't know. What do Americans eat? Like, and you were like, well, do you want to get some tacos? I was like, real, genuine, authentic tacos. Hell yeah, I do. Like, we don't really have Mexican food here. Like, we don't have, well, compared to now, what I know it actually tastes like, what authentic Mexican food tastes like. I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, nothing we have is you can compare. So I remember we had tacos, and then we went home, and there was a big banner that said "Welcome, Kam," and you showed me my room, and I got into the room, and I like good night, and I said good night to you guys or whatever. And for the next week, my bag sat in the middle of that room, and I did not unpack. I was
That's so
like,
funny.
I did not unpack. And I remember Ava had first met me, and she was 12 at the time, and she came into the room and she was like, why are your bags still packed? You know you could use the cupboard. And I was like, no, I know. I'm lazy. And meanwhile, in my head, I'm thinking, well, because if this family's crazy, I need to hide out of here. Like,
Like, I gotta keep my bag packed so that I can get out like real quick.
I'm only 18, so this is everything that I own. So this is my life like worth of treasures, right?
Oh, that's
And
so interesting to think about that.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like,
and
oh,
I
you're gonna
literally,
safely keep it in the bag.
yeah, and no, and I the first night I got there, I closed the door and I like put my bag against the door because I was like, again, I don't know. I get good vibes, but I don't know. So I locked my door, I put my bag against my door, and little did I know the next morning, man, I'm gonna tell you I felt stupid. I opened the bathroom door and I realized, oh shit, this is a Jack and Jill bathroom. So even if anybody even wanted to get into my room, they could have just gone to the bathroom and I had no idea. Like I literally looked at myself and was like, okay, cool. So you're an idiot.
Oh
No, but
my
I'm
gosh.
really lucky. And then after that I realized how, how amazing kind of you guys made me feel and how integrated quickly I became in your family. I really felt like everything that you guys did, you really were like, you wanted me there. It wasn't just because I could be there. It was because
Hmm.
you wanted me to be there. You wanted me to experience these things with you. So
And
that was amazing.
and experiencing that when we talked on the phone, gosh, we got into the deepest conversation about this. And I think one of the things that what we talked a lot about was that actual integration, and when you're actually part of the family, the things that you see and experience that are going on within that family that they also don't prepare you for. So it's like you're not just
Absolutely.
a babysitter, like you're not just a nanny, like you're literally like the daughter of the host parents, the sibling of the children that you're watching. You're actually integrated in the family. So this means that if there's challenges going on with the family, you're right there and you know what they
100%.
are.
Oh, 100%. I mean, gosh, that is, I would say, probably the top thing that I was as a 26-year-old now, well, soon to be 26. I look at it and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Going into somebody else's home, and nobody's family is perfect. We've all got our shit, right? And so going into your guys' house when I was 18, I thought like I'm going away from my family drama, like I'm escaping, like this is, and then you create a whole new family for yourself, and you're like, oh shit, there's other dynamics here. There's things that you don't know, and you become kind of like a and I'm very blessed because I was already an older sibling, so I kind of took that role on of listening to the kids when they wanted to vent or anything like that very easily.
But our dynamic was a little bit complicated because and like a lot of families, it's a blended family, right? Well, not blended. I
Yeah.
guess we had our own child together. So my ex-husband now had been married prior. So you came into an environment where I had 3 stepchildren, and then John and I had a child together. And you're very good friends with my ex. I hate saying ex stepchildren. It sounds so weird to me, but I guess
Yeah.
that's like my ex stepchildren. And that environment between the 3 of us, we weren't really that close. And so we would have them, 2 days a week. And Kennedy was obviously with us 7. And so that was something that there was also this constant, like, up and down roller coaster of a dynamic changing on a weekly basis.
I think I look at it and I think from an outsider, it was always challenging for me because before the kids really got to, I call them kids still, they're basically adults now, but I will
They
never think
are.
of them. When I started getting to know them, was a very big wall up between them and with me because they really didn't know, like, is she going to be Kennedy's friend or is she going to be our friend? Or, and I think that they realized that I loved all of them, you know, as if they were my own siblings. And so that kind of created a nice relationship between the four of us. And I think that if there was a little bit more consistency on the amount of times we saw them throughout the week and it became like a set routine, it probably would have been a little bit easier. But also, you know, you're dealing with a 2-year-old, two 13-year-olds, and one 16-year-old. They've all got multiple different schedules, all in very different phases of their lives. And I mean, what 16-year-old wants to hang out with his au pair and his 12-year-old siblings with his 2-year-old little sister? Like, he wants to go out and socialize and make his own friends. So it was, I think for me, the biggest indicator to kind of how different the dynamic was of what I thought it was going to be was probably when we went to Australia. That was a big one because I'd been staying with you for a while and I really hadn't seen any. You and John were very good at keeping. You never ever really argued in front of us. You always had your private conversations, which I really admired. I only noticed that obviously when we got back from Australia. But in Australia, obviously the kids kind of opened up to me a little bit and explained to me what they feel, you know, where they are in their relationships, in, you know, different family dynamics. And I think for me, when I look back at that experience, I kind of wish that I was a little bit more prepared mentally to know, like, sure, every person in this household has their own feelings, has their own thoughts, has their own traumas, and I actually know absolutely nothing about them. So looking into it, I almost wish that I sat down individually with everybody and kind of tried to ask them more heavy, hard-hitting questions, because I feel like maybe it would have come out sooner. And I did try my best to, you know, dissolve any conflict or whatnot when it arose. But again, I turned 19 by then. So it's kind of like, you know, what do you do? What do you do? Because you don't also, because like if you got involved as the au pair, where are you overstepping? Where is the line of you crossing, no, this is actually none of your business, or this is an opinion you shouldn't be having, right? Versus, this is my family and I'm angry with my brother or my sister for taking my makeup, or Ava, I hope you're watching because that was directed straight at you. Or, you know, your dad and your mom are arguing about something. So like, where do you get involved versus where you don't? So I think that was probably the most confusing part for me was where do I fit in the family dynamic?
Right. Yeah. And then I feel like if we started talking about that, we could really dive into so many different topics, which maybe is room for another episode, because what was very interesting at the time period that you lived with me is the relationship with John, Kennedy's father, my ex-husband, was changing. And so you were a part of that time period in our lives. And that's also why when I looked at you, I really did see myself in you. The age that you were when you arrived is really the age that I met and started dating John. There's such an age gap between us. And so looking at you actually brought a lot of things to my attention that I wasn't prepared for either. And I'm like, here is this like beautiful, smart, intelligent, like woman that is so driven and ambitious. Like, she came across the world. Like, how many people actually do that? And I'm looking at you going, oh, good gosh, this actually reminds me a lot of myself. And I met this man when I was that age. Like, yet
And
I was all over the place at that age. And like, what was I thinking? And I really started analyzing that dynamic. And it was sort of this eye-opening thing at that point in my life where I was like, oh, I need to evaluate this and where I am. And so then our dynamic started changing. A lot of people now, when they ask, like, when did you start to notice that, like, where you were at that point in your life and how that relationship started? And it was when you were my au pair, because it was like looking into a mirror and going, how did I get myself into this situation? And like, I love Kennedy's father, and he was a great husband.
of
And I'm
course.
so blessed to have her and to have had my stepchildren in my life. But that was very eye-opening to me. And so I think when you and I also would get into, sometimes like our heads would butt, it's like there is something that would happen and I would look at you and be like, I just want to shake you. Like, don't do that. Because if you do that,
Yeah.
like, you're going to end up doing this. And I don't want you to do that.
And then I would do that. And I think that's probably why we would argue, oh my gosh, with my dating life, probably the most. I just had this inability of recognizing when someone was just incredibly toxic. And you'd be like, Kam, like, no. And I'd be like, no, Amanda, they love me. You don't understand. You don't know what I'm feeling right now. And I could see, and sometimes I remember there was this one time we were like, we were arguing outside of my door, my bedroom door. It was something about me like not wanting to, you were like, okay, cool, but like we have to go, so can you be home at this time? And I was like, that's a really unreasonable time to be at home, Amanda. And it was like, I wanted to come home, like, and you were like, I don't think so. I think it's like a pretty fair time. Like, we've got to go X, Y, and Z in the morning. And looking back, I'm like, yeah, no, that makes sense. Be home, I won't be tired. But then I was like, Amanda, like, what are you, seriously? You can't control me. I am 19 years old. I'm an adult. I've been through so much in life. And you looked at me and you were like, you are frustrating me. You literally looked at me like, you need to listen. You are frustrating me. And I remember you put your hands in a bowl like this and you were like, you are frustrating me. And it was just like, whatever.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Well, and it's difficult too. Like, you were, I mean, 18, 19, you were in America, you wanted to experience America, have friends. You're at a college age. Of course, you want to be dating and doing things that a 18, 19-year-old girl would be doing. Yet you're also working and responsible for these children, and you do have rules because you're living in somebody else's house. Yet you are an adult. So you kind of didn't really feel like you wanted to have any rules because you're an adult.
Exactly. But being 18, it kind of goes even deeper, because being 18 or 19 in my country is so different to being 18 or 19
socially.
in America. Yeah, it really is. Like, there's a lot more expectations of 18, 19-year-olds. In America, it's kind of like, oh, you're a kid. You're still a kid. You don't really have any responsibilities. Or so I feel like when I got there and I was like, whoa, like, I can be a kid basically when I'm here. My wild behavior and my craziness will be tolerated and chalked up to, oh, it's young age. Like, she's just being a teenager. Whereas in my country, my family and friends would be like, okay, enough now. So I feel like I really kind of got to experience.
Live it up.
I got to experience two sides of the end of my, teens and the beginning of my 20s.
What was that experience like socially?
It's the most confusing thing to explain, because it really almost feels like you were at the whim of others. Like, you were kind of like a little circus monkey. And it had pros, because sometimes people would clap, and then sometimes it got annoying because it was just too much. It's like, for example, if I went to a house party or like a kickback and people said to me like, oh, hi, I'm so-and-so. What's your name? And then I would say, hi, I'm Kam. Nice to meet you. Then they would hear my accent, and everyone, like, I can't, like everyone would swarm in. And it wasn't people I found often, and I think maybe this is also because of the age, you know, I mean, college is very like vain and vapid time in our social lives. And I think people kind of saw that as something unique and something cool that they can like be like, oh, my friend's from South Africa. So it was less about my opinions and who I was as an individual and more kind of like what I could offer the group. If that makes any sense.
Makes sense, yeah.
I feel like I feel like when I experienced certain things with kids that were like when I was 19, they were 21, 22, they'd often make decisions as well that I'd be like, no, that's something we had already thought about in high school. And it's almost like makes me think because you're exposing these kids to certain things and certain questions and consequences so late on, it's kind of like when they have the opportunity, because you've restricted them now for so long, that when they have had the opportunity, they just go balls to the walls.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the, I cannot.
This is why the partying is so much later here than in other countries.
100%. And I cannot compare some of the behavior that I've seen at American parties versus South African parties is completely different. You know,
like
not to say that it's in a bad way, not to say it's a bad thing, but it's just it's like two different worlds. It really is. It's quite bizarre, actually. You know, I look at it and I think I'm really grateful for the experience that I got to have, ups and downs, because I now look at it and say, you know what, at least I had that opportunity. At least I got to have the choice whether I wanted to experience that or not. Mm-hmm. But some people don't. But I feel a lot of who I am today, I wouldn't be who I was if I didn't make some of those stupid mistakes that I made in the US. I wouldn't be the person that I am today if I didn't say yes to that date with the wrong guy about 4 or 5 times too many.
Yeah, we all wouldn't be.
I speak to Ava on a regular basis, and it's so crazy just to see both her and my sister. My sister's almost 21 now, and just to watch these two little girls grow up into adults now and making their own decisions and kind of paving their way through life. It's just the most interesting and bizarre thing to watch. Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, now you know what I was watching.
Yeah,
it is bizarre. Yeah, it's very bizarre.
To me, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, it was literally just a few years ago that I thought that too.
I know. You know, backtracking just a little bit too, we had talked about on the phone when people found out that you were from South Africa. This might be a little bit controversial to talk about, but that's what Your It Girl does, talk about controversial stuff sometimes. So when people would find out that you were from South Africa, or we'll go back to like when you met my mom too, because I thought that was an interesting experience. Just as far as Americans not being as, I don't want to say not as open to other cultures, but almost there's a little bit of discomfort there. So we had talked about a couple things on the phone. What was that experience like when people found out where you were from? Tread lightly.
For me, it was quite intense. It was, you know, you don't really think that people genuinely believe that in South Africa we have lions and tigers and whatever roaming around the streets. You don't actually truly believe that people in other countries believe that, right? Like, I live in a house, it's running water, I'm sitting talking to you, my MacBook with beautiful Wi-Fi, delicious running water that I'm able to drink from the tap. Like, it's quite marvelous.
From your Starbucks cup.
Yeah, like you cannot get more basic. And for me, you know, people, I would be sitting in, for example, an Uber, and because I didn't have my license at the time, and people would say to me, like, oh, where are you from? If you hear my accent, they say, like, are you from, like, Australia or the UK? Which I think is bizarre because they sound absolutely nothing like an Australian, in my opinion.
Americans, we always just hear an accent. We just assume you're from London.
would say to them like, "Oh, I'm from South Africa," and the first thing that they would ask me is, "Oh, why are you white?" And
So
I think,
appropriate.
and I would be like, "Whoa, like that is a loaded question. Like that's hectic." Or they would
The amount
like,
of times that people said that to you, that I experienced that also, I was like, what is, you can't just, what are you doing?
it was either this one Uber driver that I had like literally was asking me about my whole family history from just like everything from race to gender to culture. I was just like, this is a lot. This is a, um, but you kind of you have to just look at it and be respectful. And this I'm sure there are 1,001 things that I do not know, even though I've lived there, about
Mm-hmm.
America. There's so many dynamics and so many different places within the country that you kind of just got to be patient and be like, okay, cool. They just, how do you learn? How
Right.
do you learn? You ask questions. So it was interesting. There was only a few times where I would say it became kind of more of a heated debate. I don't even really want to say
Mm.
argument because it's very rare that I will like snap at anybody. But there were a few times where I think people got like a little bit out of pocket, like a little bit, kind of implying things that weren't necessarily true about my life or my family or kind
Mm.
of my culture as a South African.
Well, because it's
So
interesting too, like when you say you're from South Africa, I encountered this so many times with you, and it blew my mind. But and this sounds really, it doesn't sound great to say, but people would say, "Oh, like you're from like the south of Africa," and you're like, "No, I'm from the
oh
country of
yeah,
South Africa." Like, but a lot of times, I mean, I know I witnessed this, which is mind blowing, but people would assume that you're from like the entire continent of Africa, the south of
Africa.
it. It's like, no, 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 no.
I
There's a
I swear on my
difference.
life, it was so bizarre to me.
It's
There was
so
just so many things.
bizarre.
It was absolutely bizarre because I really, when I was sitting there and I was saying like, no, I'm from South Africa, and they're like, oh, how's the south of Africa? I'm like, no, 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 not the south of. It's just South Africa. It's like a completely different country. Like there's multiple countries within
In
the
the
continent
continent.
of Africa, and we've all got like our own ways of living, our own languages, our own culture. Like, just because I'm from the continent of Africa does not I'm going to speak the same language as somebody up in Northern Africa. You know what I mean? Like it's just not a thing. So, I mean, I remember the first time I met your mom, we went to Barnes and Nobles,
And you'd
in
never
America.
been to a bookstore like this before either.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. It was, I think I had like a little bit kind of like when I moved to America, keep in mind, everything that I've seen in America is on movies. So it was like I was on like a real life movie set, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm in I'm in the city where Twilight was written, and also Twilight lives here, and I'm just gonna live my best life. So when I walked into Barnes and Nobles, I'm like, this is the bookstore that like all those meet cute happens like on the rom-coms and stuff, and they pick up books together. And so I got really excited. And in America, it's a really cool thing that they do is they at the libraries, they have like reading times where like kids can go and they read books and stuff. And I thought that was such a great time of not only occupying kids' times, but also it's a great little social, like a little time in the day where they can socialize with other kids their age. And afterwards, we went for lunch at like your mom wanted to go to this like kind of steakhouse place, and I didn't want to order steak or burger or anything, but she insisted that I do. She was like, it tastes amazing. So I was like, okay, cool. Like I'm open. And then when I got the burger and I cut it open, it just didn't look the same or like smell exactly the same as what I was used to, because I had never eaten meat from another country before. And I was like, yeah, it looks good. And she was like, as she was cutting into steak, she was like, yeah, there's no meat like American meat. And I was like, right. He was like, it's just so fresh and so organic. And I was
You're
like,
like, not really.
I was like, I was like, like we have like one of the biggest meat industries. Like there's farms everywhere here in South Africa. So, and like if we want to eat sushi or anything, because it got onto other foods as well, this debate about who has the most fresh food. We live right on by the beach. We live in the ocean, so our sushi literally comes like fish of the day is literally fish of the day. So our apples are the size of our hand, not the size of two.
Yeah.
So these are all like the little debates that your mom and I had, and I remember. I think it was your sister, one of your sisters was there with her two boys as well. And she just looked at me and she was just like, "You're not going to win this. You're just, not gonna win. You're just not going to." I was like, "Okay, cool. This is delicious." And I just ate my
it's
burger.
better here. You must say that. You must say that to my mom.
It's better here. America, it's top notch.
You can't say it's not. I think I actually told you that afterwards at the lunch. I was like, you can't. You just have to just go along with it.
But then I think about it as well. And then like when I look at it, like I know how proud some people are of being American, but then I look at how proud some people are of being South African as well. And so if you had to come into their country and say, well, country's food is better in X, Y, and Z, I'm sure, you might also spark up a little bit of debate in that person as well. Because you want to defend the place that you live in. And I would say that's one of the most amazing things that I actually picked up in America is after a while, I never thought anything cool about being South African. I never was like, oh my gosh, I'm South African. That's cool.
Yeah.
When I moved to America, I was very much like, oh, I wish I was American. But it really gave me such perspective and such appreciation for the country that I was born in and, the culture that my people have and, the way we celebrate together and the way we all sing our national anthem together when, the rugby's on or something. Or, we just recently, South Africa just won the World Cup. Amanda, please, anybody that's watching, when you are done with this episode, please go and just Google Cape Town Rugby World Cup 2023 celebrations. Please just Google. You will see there are people standing on police cars, waving the South African flag, people cheering everywhere, holding each other. It's just like when we're united, we really are like what you would call the Rainbow Nation. It's like we've kind of got every single type of person, and we're so diverse and like so culturally diverse.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of beautiful where I'm from. I never really appreciated that until I was probably about like 24. It's always like, damn, I want that green card.
But speaking of Googling, how do we find you?
How do you find me?
Yes. How do we find Kam for anyone that wants to reach out to you?
I am on Instagram basically every day of my life.
That's your job now.
Yeah, job. You can just find me at Kam Steyl, so at KAMSTEYL. And yeah, I'm on public, so you guys can see all my stuff already. And I would love to actually have a debate with people about what's going on. It's very interesting to me to be able to like talk to people from other countries. You'd be surprised like at how many people have like a similar opinion to me, and then how many people have a completely different experience in America than what I do. It's like chalk and cheese.
Before we sign off, is there anything that you would? What was the greatest like takeaway of living in another country at the age you were at in your life?
It's absolutely cheesy as it sounds, is that no matter who you are or what you think you are capable of so much more. It really is one of those situations where if you it's scary and it's confusing, but if you trust your gut and you go for it, just give yourself a chance. You can accomplish so much more than what you originally think. So I just really want everybody to know that, like, go out there, wake up, seize the day, carpe diem.
Carpe diem. I've always loved that vibrancy about you and that natural like charisma and the happiness that you have and carry with you. Kam, thank you for coming on today. I'm going to cry as we kind of wrap this up. You're so far away and I wish you were here now. But maybe she'll be coming soon. She may be coming soon back to the USA. So if so, we'll have her on an in-person episode. But I will have the link to her Instagram so that way you can find her if you need to. If you feel the need to reach out to Kam for a fiery debate.
Telling me how your food is more organic than South African.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not. So thank you for coming on. I love you so very, very much. We are going to have another episode too. So you guys will see Kam again very, very soon.
Amazing.
Thanks for being on. That's your It Girl, everybody.